this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Work can be a little weird. Cringy training seminars, coworkers who won't stop talking about their plant, forgetting the mute button at an inopportune moment. We have to deal with a lot on any given workday. Sometimes it can feel hard to thrive and move forward in your career. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in. LinkedIn helps you get ideas and insights from experts in your field, connect with people professionally, grow your network, and access tools designed to help you find the right fit for your next role. Whether you're just getting started, figuring out your next move, or looking to accelerate your career, LinkedIn is built to support you at every stage because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more. Hey, and welcome to The Short Stuff. I'm Josh, and there's Chuck, and Jerry's sitting in for Dave, and this is Short Stuff about Tulipmania.
That's right. Tulipmania was perhaps the first financial bubble to happen and then burst. And we should probably talk a little bit about what an economic bubble is, don't you think?
Yeah. It's where the price of a good or an asset or something like that, let's just say item,
Sure.
goes sky high, way, way, way beyond any reasonable value that it should have. And that's because of exuberant trading. And the more exuberant the trading is, the more people get sucked in by it. And they want to make some money too. So more people start investing and the prices keep going higher and higher and higher. That's the first part of the bubble. There's another less happy side of the bubble too.
That's right. Because as anyone who's ever been to a bubble rave or played bubbles with your kids or just adult friends who enjoy bubbling, that bubble's going to burst. They all will eventually. And that's what happens with an economic bubble too. The price will drop usually pretty quickly. And a lot of people start selling off very quickly. And those who get out early enough can usually avoid it. But every single time someone is going to be left holding that asset that is all of a sudden not worth much of anything. And a lot of times people have invested their entire life savings in this stuff. A lot of times they bought this stuff on credit. And all of a sudden this thing isn't worth that much money and they're in real financial trouble.
Yeah, it's a bad scene.
Yeah.
And so like you said, all the way back in the 17th century, people consider the first economic bubble to have surrounded tulips and tulip bulbs in Holland.
That's right. And when you said Tulipmania,
yeah,
that's really what it was called. You weren't just being cheeky.
No, that's what it's referred to, I'm sure, among economists, among historians, among the Dutch, among podcasters. It's called Tulipmania. That wasn't just me being funny.
So a little bit about tulips, native to places like Kazakhstan and Eastern Europe and the Himalayas. They don't look like the tulips in their original form that we think of today, but they have been cultivated over the years and crossbred to where they look like tulips now. These beautiful. We even have tulips popping up here in Atlanta already this spring, and they're lovely. They're grown from bulbs. And they're, I don't know about how easy or hard it is, but they, like I said, are crossbred to create new and exciting varieties and colors.
Yeah. So tulips first arrived in Holland around 1600. The Dutch East India Company was moving spices and exotic goods from the East to Europe, Holland in particular. And tulips arrived, and for the first couple decades, they were, if you were a plant enthusiast, you probably had a tulip in your collection. If you were very, very rich and just wanted to show off how cutting edge you were, you might have some tulips in your garden. But they weren't a big deal until 1634. And the reason they became a big deal almost overnight was because those same upper classes and nobility in Holland decided that tulips were now a status symbol. And that if you didn't have tulips growing in your garden and you were a member of the aristocracy or nobility, you were a total loser with a capital L.
That's right. So in this case, you had, economically speaking, you had a big-time demand all of a sudden. But not only was it a big-time demand, it was a big-time demand of people that had a lot of money. So the price went through the roof very, very quickly. A single bulb, one tulip bulb, would fetch 2,000 florin. And just to put it into perspective, what you could buy back then for 2,000 florin 16,000 pounds of cheese, 250 tons of beer, a couple of hundred sheep, or maybe 16 grown oxen.
Yeah.
And they were paying prices in today's dollars. Thank you, Investopedia, for doing this weird translation. But in today's dollars, for a single tulip bulb, they were paying 50 grand, 150 grand, even sometimes for the rarest varieties up to $1 million for a single bulb.
Yeah, that 50 to 150 grand, that was like day-to-day stuff.
Right.
That's what a single tulip bulb would go for.
Bulb.
It was nuts. Even at the time, there were people who were watching this and they were like, this is crazy. They're tulips, for God's sake.
Yeah, they're writing out a giant check with a feathered pen, and they're just like, I can't believe I'm paying this amount of money for a tulip.
Exactly. I say we take a break and come back and talk some more about Tulipmania. Hey everybody, we're here to talk to you about Wayfair, who believes that spaces should be functional, they should be comfortable, they should be well designed, and they can be well designed by you with their help.
Your updated space should feel more comfortable, inviting, and practical for everyday use. And we're talking about outdoor seating. We're talking about grills. We're talking about major appliances. If you need storage solutions, Wayfair can help you out. Patio lighting, rugs, decor. It is your one-stop shop for home.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting nice out, so it's time to think about living outdoors for the next few months. And Wayfair knows that outdoor furniture, it's heavy, it's intimidating to assemble. So Wayfair has stepped in and said, we're going to handle the hard part so you don't have to.
That's right. You can shop Wayfair Verified, your shortcut to the good stuff. And that means their team of product specialists are going to vet everything by hand using a 10-point inspection, testing things like, quality materials, functionality, and features, and even how long it takes to build that piece of furniture. And the overall experience save time, reduce hassle, and improved convenience.
Patio season is here, and these deals won't last. So head to wayfair.com right now to get your outdoor space ready for way less. That's WAYFAIR.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Dell PCs with Intel Inside are built for the moments that matter, for the moments you plan and the ones you don't. Built for the busy days that turn into all-night study sessions, the moment you're working from a cafe and realize every outlet's taken.
Yeah, the times you're deep in your flow and the absolute last thing you need is an auto update throwing off your momentum. That's why Dell builds tech that adapts to the way you actually work. Built with a long-lasting battery so you're not scrambling for the closest outlet, and built-in intelligence that makes updates around your schedule, not in the middle of it.
That's right. They don't build tech just for tech's sake. They build it for you. Find technology built for the way you work at Dell.com/Dell PCs. Built for you.
Okay, Chuck, so we were just talking about how crazy expensive a single tulip bulb was in Holland in the 1630s.
Single tulip bulbs.
Right. So some people among the wealthy would use like significant portions of their fortune, of their wealth, to buy tulips and just grow them. They weren't reselling them. They weren't doing anything. They were buying tulips and growing them. They were spending half of their net worth to buy tulips just to show off, right?
Yeah.
At some point, people started saying, like, I think that if I start buying tulips and then selling them for a higher price, I could really make some money. And as a matter of fact, I can start speculating where I will go into futures contracts with people and say, hey, I'll sell you X number of tulips in 3 weeks for X number of dollars because I'm betting that the price is going to go down, but you're betting that the price is going to go up. Let's see who wins. And speculation is one of the main drivers, essentially, of an economic bubble. Like, it's crazy that the single bulbs were going for that, but once people started speculating and creating, like, instruments and futures contracts based on that crazy high price, that's when it really started to get troublesome.
Yeah, for sure. They were actually sold on the Dutch Stock Exchange. And these were, some wealthy investors, but everybody got in on the gang. Like, the gang? The game. Just regular middle working class people, even like people of the lower classes, they started cashing in everything they could, selling their houses in some cases, selling the tools of their trade that they were previously making money on to invest in these tulips. And, what's going to happen is that eventually is going to burst. And it did so less than 2 years after this frenzied investment stuff started in 1636.
Yeah. The bubble burst because some people, like we said earlier, that there were some people who were like, this is crazy. And even some speculators and people who were invested in tulips were like, this is not going to last much longer. I'm going to get out. And as more people started to decide to get out, you can trigger a panic. And if you trigger a panic, all of a sudden the bubble bursts and the price just drops precipitously. And that's what happened with the Tulipmania bubble. A bunch of people who had large stocks of tulip bulbs when the price dropped almost overnight were ruined financially. They had, say, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tulips that they'd paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that were now worth hundreds of dollars. And it was a bad jam for anybody who was caught with tulip bulbs when the bubble burst.
Yeah, I mean, it affected the wealthy, obviously, in some cases, but it also affected a lot of those people that were looking to get wealthy and did sometimes, make a lot of money during this, less than 2 year period. But, like I said, some people sold their homes and all of a sudden they don't have a home and they're stuck with all these tulips.
Yep.
The trades people who, sold their tools because they were like, hey, I'm in the tulip game now. I don't need these iron working skills or tools. All of a sudden they couldn't even go back to that trade because they didn't have the stuff they needed to do it. And the people who bought those future contracts were the people that were really, really in trouble, right?
Yeah, because again, you're saying I will buy 1,000 tulip bulbs in 4 weeks at, $1 million. And when the bubble burst and those tulip, the 1,000 bulbs were now worth $1,000 and you're on the hook to pay $1 million for them.
Yeah.
Those speculators were like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this.
Or they can't.
Yeah, they might not have been able to any longer. But the suppliers who had these tulip bulbs and were technically owed $1 million regardless of what the tulip bulbs were worth, they won their bet. But they still, the buyers would not pay the suppliers. And that's what really created this huge financial crisis. And it got bad enough. At first, the Dutch governments of the big cities and I think the monarchy did not get involved. They did not want to get involved. The courts were like, we're not going to hear any cases because these are bets as far as the law is concerned, and a bet isn't legally binding. But it was so bad. The Dutch economy was in such tatters because so many people had gotten into tulips, Chuck, that they just, like you said, tradespeople just sold their tools. People sold their houses. The regular economy that was built on that kind of work and stuff like that, it sagged. It was unmaintained during this tulip mania. So it was a big problem that the Dutch had. So finally, some of the higher ups got involved and tried to figure this out.
Well, they tried to, not to much effect, but the courts finally said, all right, we have to do something here. So why don't we work out a deal where the traders pay 10% of the contract's face value? But nobody was happy with that because the suppliers were still losing tons of money. The buyers still were in bad shape because the value of those tulips just, plummeted. And 10% of a future contract was a lot more than they were worth now. And so, nobody really won in the end. And it wrecked the Dutch economy for, it took a couple of decades to sort of naturally heal itself back to where it was.
Yeah, that's what the Dutch government ultimately decided to do is nothing. And it just had to mend itself naturally as people got back to work and people sold their tulip bulbs for way less. But they did sell their tulip bulbs because the Dutch were still and are still kind of crazy for tulips.
Oh, yeah.
I read that they still pay higher prices than other countries for tulip bulbs because people just know that the Dutch are crazy for tulips and they'll pay it. And I guess about this time of year, every year, the Dutch countryside just explodes in color.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And I can also recommend a classic Conan O'Brien bit when he used to go on location and do remote stuff. He has a very, very funny one from, I believe, his like first iteration of his show, where he and Andy went to Amsterdam and went out with the camera to the tulip farms and the tulip markets, and it was very, very funny. I'm sure you can still find it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the recommendation. You got anything else?
I have no other recommendations other than plant tulip bulbs. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, and beware economic bubbles.
Yeah, that too.
Short Stuff is out.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.